An essay on liberal socialism, a warning against the perils of misnamed ideals. Among the many confusions and perversions that plague our modern discourse, none is so pernicious as the theft of the noble term liberal by those who advocate for doctrines contrary to its true meaning. Liberalism, that cherished philosophy of individual sovereignty, wherein each man is master of his own life and conscience, stands in stark opposition to the collectivist doctrines of socialism, which would subjugate the individual to the dictates of the many under the guise of flourishing. Yet, by subtle sophistries and co-optation of words, the collectivist has enrobed his creed in the garments of liberty, confounding the unthinking and beguiling the well-meaning. At its heart, liberalism upholds the primacy of the individual, declaring that the rights of man are inherent, not granted by any earthly power. It is the doctrine that government exists to secure those rights, not to encroach upon them, and that the freedom to think, speak, labor, and trade is the cornerstone of a just and prosperous society. Liberalism, therefore, is not merely concerned with the end of flourishing, but with the means by which it is achieved, through the free and voluntary actions of individuals pursuing their own happiness. Any imposition that curtails this liberty, no matter how noble its stated intent, is an affront to the liberal principle. Socialism, by contrast, places its faith in the collective, asserting that the good of society justifies the subordination of individual liberties. In this, it confuses flourishing with liberty, mistaking the ends of well-being for the means of freedom. The socialist argues that because liberty, rightly exercised, leads to flourishing, any policy that promises flourishing, be it through redistribution, centralized control, or enforced equality, must also be an extension of liberty. This is a grave error, for such policies are achieved not through the free consent of individuals, but through coercion, which is the very antithesis of liberty. To illustrate this distinction, let us consider the public library, a noble institution that serves the common good without infringing upon individual sovereignty. A public library, established and maintained by the contributions of a local community, operates as a decentralized, voluntary endeavor. It is a collective good, yet its governance and funding remain close to the people, respecting the principle of subsidiarity. Such an institution, while not strictly liberal in its reliance on collective action, fits within the framework of a constitutional republic. It neither demands a centralized leviathan to dictate its operation, nor infringes upon the liberties of those it serves. This stands in contrast to the progressive tendency, which seeks to concentrate power in a distant, unaccountable government, under the pretense of achieving similar ends on a grander scale. Progressivism, with its insistence upon a centralized nanny state, has betrayed the very ideals it claims to champion. By empowering the state to oversee every aspect of life, it has created the very monster our founding fathers warned against, a system ripe for the exploitation of plutocrats. Wealth and power, once constrained by a government of laws, now conspire to wield the immense machinery of centralized authority for their own gain. The nanny state, far from protecting the weak, has become an instrument of oppression, enabling those with means to bend the rules to their will, while the common man bears the burden of regulation and taxation. The warnings of Jefferson and Madison echo through the ages. That power concentrated in the hands of a few is ever a threat to liberty. Progressivism, by rejecting decentralization and embracing the centralized state, has opened the door to plutocracy, a rule by the wealthy elite who now wield government power with impunity. The remedy to this descent into tyranny is a return to the principles of true liberalism. We must recognize that flourishing, while a noble goal, cannot be imposed from above without eroding the very liberty that makes it possible. The public library, as a decentralized, locally governed institution, offers a model for how collective endeavors may be pursued without sacrificing individual sovereignty. We must resist the siren song of centralized solutions, which promise ease and equality, but deliver only dependence and despotism. Instead, Let us embrace the wisdom of our founding fathers, who saw in the separation of powers and the decentralization of authority the best defense against tyranny. Let us champion the liberty of the individual, secure in the knowledge that it is through free and voluntary association, not coercion, that true flourishing is achieved. In conclusion, in reclaiming the true meaning of liberalism, we safeguard the liberties that are the birthright of every man and woman. We reject the false promises of socialism and progressivism, which would barter our freedoms for a fleeting mirage of security. And we affirm that it is only in the free exercise of our sovereignty, in the voluntary acts of creation and cooperation, that we fulfill the highest potential of our humanity. Let us therefore remain ever vigilant against the encroachments of centralized power, and let us hold fast to the lamp of liberty, that its light may never be extinguished.